In this clip, I talked to Philip Lemoine of Honolulu, Hawaii about his journey from filming in nightclubs to skateboarding, moving to Hawaii and starting a wedding videography company, to now showcasing his love for the culinary arts. The one thing in every pivot that's been consistent is following his passion.
When we moved to Hawaii, my dad actually upgraded his camera. We used to have an old school VHS camera, and he was like, hey, we're starting this new life here in Hawaii. I want to document all this stuff. So he bought a new camera and he gave me his old camera. And I think that's where my filming journey began. And I didn't really know it. I just would, bring that camera around and film, I don't know, just random stuff that I would, go through as a middle schooler.
You're that guy showing up with the camera everywhere.
Yeah. And around that time, I also really got into rollerblading. And that was, the early 90s where things were starting to blow up, the X Games and Brink and, all that stuff. And I would use my camera to film a lot of rollerblading, and I would edit those videos on literally like 2 VCRs. I would set them up and I would play the video on one, and then I would linear edit them by hitting record on the other one for each clip that I wanted. And I would make these skating videos. At the time I got back into rollerblading, they built a new skate park in our town, and I upgraded my camera gear at that time. I was shooting on like a Canon GL2, a lot more professional looking, quality productions were coming out. And I remember one day I was at the skate park and just all these rollerbladers just showed up out of nowhere. And to make a long story short, some of these guys were professional, and they saw the camera that I had and they were like, hey, do you want to come film with us? And I actually thought they meant rollerblading videos. They were like professional rollerbladers, and they made rollerblading videos. One of their names is specifically, one of them is Vinny Minton. He owns Imperial Video Productions now. He's the one who got me into weddings. He put me on. He saw I added him on MySpace. He saw my cotillion video on my MySpace page or wall, and he was like, hey, do you want to come shoot weddings with us? And I thought he meant, like I said, rollerblading videos, but he was like, no, we don't make any, there's no money in the rollerblading industry, and we make all of our money by filming weddings.
So now you have this opportunity to actually get paid to shoot. That must have been much better than not getting paid for all the other fun projects you were doing, in a sense, right?
So I'm getting paid $25 an hour. This is way more money than I've ever made in my life. Working retail, I think I was getting minimum wage at a job that I hated doing. And I was like, man, I really want to pursue, more shooting. I didn't realize at the time that you can make money doing something that you love. I didn't believe it. And once that sort of clicked, I was like, wow, maybe I can do this, And the real thing that happened, the one thing that happened was an accident that got me really into this. One of the companies that I was working for at the time, instead of sending me the timeline, he accidentally sent me their contract. And when I saw how much he charged for the wedding videos that he was producing, I was like, dude, I could do this. Like, I think they were charging like $5,000 for wedding videos at that time. And this is a lot of money for back in the day,
That's a lot back then. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, I'd do this for like $500. You know what I mean? So that's when I was like, I'm going to try and shoot my own stuff, and I'm going to try and edit my own weddings. I've already done cotillions. This is basically the same thing, but it's just with couples now, And I've learned so much working with Vinny and these other companies about audio and lighting and camera placement and all of that stuff. So I pitched, wedding videography to some of my friends that were getting married or that were engaged. And I was like, hey, I'll shoot your wedding for free. I just want to, make my own demos and that sort of thing. And around that time, I was also traveling back to Hawaii a lot. I was working in a retail job. I was making pretty good money, and I was like, hey, on my vacation, I kind of just want to go back to Hawaii and just, reconnect with a lot of my friends and, just get back out there. And during that time, I was filming a lot and doing all that stuff too. And something in me was just like, you know what, like, I want to move back to Hawaii. Like, I was just so sick of living in the Bay Area. A lot of people were like, there was just a lot of not good stuff happening. I wasn't really going anywhere. I was just, drinking, going out, partying. A lot of my friends were like getting shot, and, it was just like, we were all in bad crowds. And not to say that we were in the ghetto or anything, but we were definitely like up to no good. And there was something in me, and it's probably a lot for my dad too, just like a lot of pressure to like, I'm 20 something, still living at home. And it was just like, you need to get out of the house, you need to do something. I dropped out of college because it wasn't for me. Before I even moved to Hawaii, I remember specifically one day shooting a wedding with my friend Vinny. We were at a hotel and I was telling him like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Hawaii. And I didn't realize it at the time, but Hawaii was like freaking wedding capital of the world, I remember all the times that I was visiting before I decided to move, I would always see that wedding couple on the beach, you know what I mean? Hundreds of weddings a day. And I was just like, damn, there's a lot of weddings out here. And that's when I thought like, man, what companies are out there right now that are making wedding films like we are, you know what I mean? Like the mainland with all this cool cinematic stuff. So I actually looked up who was out there. And this is now Still Motion is out still, you know what I mean? Joe Simon, I think was coming up, J-Mag in the Philippines, like they started to get really cinematic. And I was like, no one's doing this. And I found you. Fisheye was one. I looked at all of you guys at competition. Fisheye, Aria Studios, Studio Red. I was like, wow, these are the 3 heavy hitters out there that are doing it, like actually making wedding films, not like, you know what I mean, Uncle Bob.
The cheesy wedding videos or whatever.
Exactly. And I was like, wow, there isn't really any competition out there. It's probably going to be easy for me to move there and start my wedding stuff. I just decided one day I'm going to move to Hawaii, and I was able to transfer jobs here. So that was how I was actually able to really get out here. I still had some friends that I was connected with since middle school, and I was able to move into their house, and they let me couch surf for 3 months while I got everything figured out. What's funny is I lived in an apartment directly across the street from Central Union Church. So I was seeing weddings happening every day.
Every day.
Yeah, like on the hour. I'm seeing these weddings happening across the street, and I was like, man, I can do this. I should be filming these weddings. How can I get into this, And I remember towards the end of that first year living there, one of these big moments that happened was, it was actually on New Year's Day. I was living in Hawaii for only 2 months, and I ended up getting in a fight. And the person broke my jaw.
Oh, wow.
And
but let's how did he end up? Was he in the hospital too, or?
Gosh, I don't remember. It was a crazy night. A lot of people jumped in. There's a baseball bat involved.
Oh, wow.
But I ended up breaking my jaw. My mouth got wired shut for 6 or 8 weeks. And during that time, I couldn't work. So I took all of that time off to just research Cinema 5D. The website just came out. 7Ds were the new camera. And I was just researching and all this stuff. I created a business plan. I was able to get a loan and buy my first DSLR. I created a website. I learned how to do all of this stuff while I was stuck at home. Kind of like the pandemic that's happening right now. I had this really major moment in my life that stopped everything for me, and I couldn't do anything. And I pivoted and I figured out what to do and what's going to be my next step, and I got all my gear, and I had all my audio gear, and I posted a few of my videos on my website and everything. And I got discovered by Julian from 10th Letter Media. He was in the process of trying to transition out of shooting Japanese weddings into doing his own thing. And he was looking for a second shooter. So I ended up getting picked up as a second shooter working for Julian. And he was busy. He was doing like 8 weddings a month, and I was bringing in like $300 to $500 a wedding. And this was the most money I've ever seen in my life. And in my first year of moving into Hawaii, I was actually able to quit my job I was selling phones in retail and go full-time wedding videographer. And while that was happening, I was also trying to develop my own brand and my own style. And then I started booking my own weddings, and then it just sort of quickly snowballed. And, I met you and a lot of the other people out there, and grew so much just with the scene that we had here, our film industry. And the one thing that's so great about our industry here in Hawaii, it's that we are all peers. Everyone helps each other. It's not like competition. Like I was thinking, that was my mindset. It was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from, you and other people in the industry, and it really helped me get my business to where it is today.